Hello and welcome to the Recruit Rockstars podcast, where we focus on the people part of your business. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I interview a world-class expert on talent and recruiting so that you can build a company filled with rock stars. And I am truly, truly humbled to have today's guest. Horst Schultze is a legend in the business world. And before I tell you about him, over the next 20 minutes, we are going to talk about how to find, how to keep, how to build a culture of service. And no matter what your industry is, no matter where you're located, no matter how big your business is, I would argue that products are becoming the commodity and service is becoming where you're going to differentiate, especially the service that your people provide. And today's guest, Horst Schultze, there's just no better at understanding that topic. Horst is a legend and a leader in the business world, and specifically in the hotel world. His teachings, his vision have shaped the concept, the very fabric of what service and hospitality means. He started his profession 65 years ago in a small German resort town as a server's assistant. He worked for Hilton Hotels. He worked for Hyatt Hotels. And he became one of the founding members, in fact, the president, the chief operating officer of the Ritz Carlton Hotel Company in 1983. And Ritz Carlton, as you probably know, created the service standards that have become world famous. And Horst led that. He was responsible for $2 billion in operations, many, many locations. They won the Malcolm Baldridge Award not once, but twice, which is the only hotel company to ever do that. And then when Horst left Ritz Carlton, a lot of people would say, well, go retire, take it easy, put your feet in the sand. No, he takes the weekend off and he starts a completely new company, the Capella Hotel Group. And that was 2002. And that was known not just for luxury, but for ultra luxury. And so we're going to talk about that too. And Horst has recently published a new book. You got to get your hands on it. It's fascinating. It's called Excellence Wins, a no-nonsense guide to becoming the best in a world of compromise. And we're going to talk about compromise in a minute. So Horst, with all that, thank you for making the time and welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Let's start with compromise. When you talk about the world of compromise, what do you mean? Where are you coming from on that?
Well, we're compromising constantly, it seems. I look at myself when in the Ritz Carlton times. After a while, there was a location. Well, it wasn't the very best. Maybe we should do it anyway. Or hiring the right person. Well, they're not quite fitting our criteria, but we need somebody. So to fill the job. So let's put them into the job, etc., etc., etc. We compromise constantly, which is wrong. If you want to create excellence, you don't compromise.
Yeah.
You shoot for doing the very best for the people that you serve all around you.
And so that means leaving a position open if you have to until you find the right person.
Absolutely. Suffer through it.
Suffer through it. So basically that means everyone else around that vacancy has to fill in and cover that role until you find the right person.
That's it. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, look in our industry, we know it. When we were running Ritz Carlton at the time, and I think it is probably the same, I don't have statistics lately because I'm not in the game anymore that much. However, the employee turnover in the hotel restaurant business all around was over 120%.
Sure.
I mean, that's a joke. That means all the knowledge walks out of the door. Why is that so? First of all, because we hire people to fill a certain job. We shouldn't hire people. We should select people for a certain job.
And then create the job around the person?
No, the job is there, but find out the job. Well, if there are adjustments can be made without compromising, again, there it is. It has to be ever present. Then you maybe adjust something of the job, but at the same time, the job is there. You have determined that's what the job is. That's how it has to be done. Now you find somebody who is talented, willing and able and excellent to fill and has the talent to fill that particular situation. And that's what we did. So we created a selection process. The whole thing about employees and the shortage of employees, look out the window, there are plenty of people. The problem, they're not working for you if you're short.
Yep.
Now, so So I have to make sure that I create an environment, first of all, where people will enjoy working for me. Let's start in the beginning. And there's several steps. We have to understand that, and we don't seem to understand this anymore. People don't just want a job. They want to belong.
Right. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. That's a basic human need, right?
Exactly. It's a very basic human need that has been established by Aristotle 3,000 years ago. We still don't use it.
So what was it at Ritz Carlton and at Capella that people wanted to be part of? What were you creating for them to feel connected to?
We created a vision of excellence. We said we want to be the global leader in the service business. Now, when we did that, we asked ourselves, is that vision good for all concerned? Is it good for the investors? I mean, if it's not, I shouldn't do it. Well, sure. Obviously, if I'm the best, it's good for them. Is it good for the guest? Obviously.
Obviously.
Is it good for the employees? And why? Because if they're known as the best, they have opportunities everywhere else.
They'll be recruited, and headhunters will call them all the time.
This is it. So once we had that vision, we invited, when we interviewed people, we said, don't come to work for us. Come and join this dream. And so you establish that dream, that vision, and show them, you have to show them then how that vision is of value to them. When you show them our motive,
personally, not just the business.
For the individual, for each individual. Here is our vision. Here's how it's good for the company, and here's how it's good for you. Here's how you will benefit if we accomplish this vision. So join me for a dream, have a purpose. So in other words, what you're giving them, what you're offering them is purpose and belonging at the same time.
Even more than money, did you find that was the compelling reason?
You know, here's the crazy thing. There were it's an old survey, but a number of years ago, there was a survey done in US and Europe, 3 million workers, 3 million. Yeah. Several universities involved. And guess what? Money was on 6th place. The first place was of having belonging. Wow. Then the next place was kind of having elbow room, meaning
to do the job, to figure out the job. Yep.
Et cetera, et cetera. Now, if that is true, why don't we offer that?
Yeah. And so money was number 6.
Was number 6. So what we created is this whole selection. By the way, when we say, and the next thing is orientation. Instead of, and this is what happens in every company, I talk to a lot of company. Guys, you have to stop this. The new worker comes in and we give him the stupid, here we are a team speech.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. If you're a team, you have to give them a common objective.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're not a team.
Yeah.
But we say we're a team here. Now, Bill, follow Joe. He knows the ropes. You're not in the rope business. Don't turn them over. Tell them who you are. Tell them what your soul is as an organization. Invite them again to be part of you.
So it has to be very, very human and very personal, even before you get to the business stuff.
Exactly. Don't explain the function. We don't explain the function for a couple of days. We explain what we think, what our customers think, what we believe, what our dream is, what our soul is.
As I read about you and learned about you, Horst, you mentioned somewhere I read there are these 20 things and you would train them over and over and over. Were these what were they? Were they like guiding principles?
Yes. Well, we called them the gold standard in Ritz Carlton. We called them the basics in Capella, basically the same. Once we identified our vision, we said, okay, what are the 20 things that we have to be superior in the competition?
Can you give us an example?
Well, if an employer asks for a direction, don't point, take them there.
Walk the guest to where they want to go.
Where to go.
And how did you, I know this sounds silly, but what in your brain said this is important?
This is important because this gives you, first of all, you're responding, you're not just pointing. Secondly, it gives you an opportunity of a moment of relationship.
So it's a bonding opportunity.
Have a moment of relationship. So while you go over there, we taught them to ask, I hope, are you a guest in the hotel? I hope you have a wonderful stay. to build a relationship, and now the guest feels that they belong.
It's funny you say that, because I can think of, I've stayed at Ritz. I've been fortunate enough to stay at those properties sometimes, and they will literally come around the desk and escort you to where you want to go. Sure. Whereas other places, they're like, oh, it's over there. And they point. And maybe they don't even say anything. They just kind of grunt and point.
Or here's number 11. If you get a complaint, you own it. With other words, if you're the waiter and the guest complains that the toilet didn't flush, you own it.
And you can spend $2,000 as an employee to get it fixed right, to save the customer. But that all sounds great. Everyone's heard that legendary story. What I'm curious about is, does that mean it is the manager's responsibility to back that employee up? Let's say the manager disagrees and says, you didn't have to spend $2,000 on that. Does the manager have to say, you know what, but I back you up 100%?
The manager doesn't even have to be asked. The employee can do it. And the manager is expected and taught to respect it and maybe teach how it could have been done a little bit better, but not complain about it.
Right. You can't kick the person when they're down, or you can't berate them for doing that.
That's right. Now, we did. Can you imagine when I came up with that idea with the fireworks I got from everybody? I mean,
I'm sure
it was just amazing, and people didn't believe it. Well, it didn't do it for a silly reason. I knew the value of my customer lifetime was about potentially $200,000.
Yeah, so $2,000 is nothing.
It's nothing. Now nobody ever spent $2,000. In the case of for example, the waiter that said in the morning, "How are you? And I hope you have a nice stay." And the guest said, "No, my toilet didn't flush." And he said, "Please forgive me. I'm so sorry. I feel so bad about breakfast." Now, immediately, we moved the customer that could have been a detractor, negative. We moved them to a very positive customer that goes out there and talks positive about us. That's worth a breakfast.
It's actually, I've read studies that when you turn around a bad situation and do a great job fixing it, it does, to your point, create that relationship moment, that surprise moment that makes the person, engenders loyalty, and they're going to come back because of that, versus if it didn't happen at all.
Exactly. Or versus the customer go out and talk negative about you. I turn them into a positive customer that talks positive. I mean, what a total reversal. Is that worth money? You better believe it. It's worth money. Now, no employee ever spent $2,000.
Got it.
You know, this is one of the points, point 11, which is those 20 points are taught during orientation. That's a key element.
And you did that, let's be clear, you did that yourself for the first, 50 properties or something?
Each property that we own, yes.
You taught them yourself?
Yes. Incredible. Doesn't matter if that was Philadelphia or Shanghai, it didn't matter.
And do you think if you recruit well, that I think some executives feel like if I hire well, I don't need to teach them this stuff. They inherently know this stuff. I don't know that I agree with that.
Of course not. I mean, first of all, let me explain the selection. Now I'm selecting, right? Just think, if I can improve my selection by 5% over the competition, I'm killing them.
Yeah.
And so now I'm orienting. Now, mind you, the orientation was done the first day they come to work. Which is a day of significant emotional event where you can impact them. If I had an open job, but my day of orientation was in 2 weeks, I would hire you, put you in a payroll, but you cannot show up. Show up because orientation has to be the first day. That day when you're significantly emotional event, where they teach you, now welcome. To
it's such a lost opportunity.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful moment.
Yeah, some companies don't spend time onboarding new folks. They assume, well, I hired a smart person, and P.S. I waited too long to hire them, so I need them to produce tomorrow.
But it's worse, we turn them over to some other employee who maybe disgruntled that day and said, this company is not good. And that's his orientation.
It ruins the person forever.
So if you're short of labor, the first thing you want to do is keep the employees that you have.
Yeah, right.
Why keep on running and hire others? Why not make an effort to keep the ones that
you don't have to hire as many if you keep the ones you have.
That's
now,
it.
Let's go back, Horst, to your point about money being important, but not everything. The hospitality business is known, as you said, for this very high turnover, 100%. So they last 6 months. there must have been times when you turned around someone who was going to leave or who thought about leaving. What can I do to help my best people stay? Because they're going to get recruited away. If I'm doing my job, they're going to get calls from headhunters. Other than just throwing money at them, what else can I do?
Well, that's the interesting thing in our analysis. First of all, you should have an exceptional exit interview where you really, and I mean, I would even recommend use a psychiatrist to do it. I mean, I'm exaggerating maybe a little bit. So you really know why they're leaving. They all say money. I mean, if you ask any manager why they're leaving, they says money. But it's not true. Yeah. It's not true.
Not if it's $5,000-$10,000. It's not. That's not why they're leaving. Money
because you mean the waiter goes over there to next door. You think they're going to pay him $50 more an hour? That's a joke. Yeah. Maybe they make 5 cents more. Yeah. That's not why they're leaving. They're leaving because they don't feel like they're belonging. That means you didn't communicate. That's why we have stand-up communication every day before every shift, where you will repeat one of the key elements of the company.
One of those 20 things.
20 basics, and we tell them what's going on in the company, so that they feel a sense of belonging. And we ask them how can we improve your job. We have a meeting, a set meeting after they're in a hotel for 60 days, working 60 days, and say, what do we have done? What have you promised that we don't live up to? What can we do to make your job easier? What can we make? And we keep on communicating those things.
It sounds almost, I mean, I think about, housekeeping staff being asked to a meeting, what can we do better to make your job easier? I'm sure that does not happen in other hotel chains.
No, that's it.
And so she or he must feel so connected to the company, like they give a shit about me, right?
And they appreciate it, they're connected, they trust you. And if there comes something, you have to be absolutely sure that if something is recommended, that you follow up.
Yeah.
Within 24 hours, go back to them. Here's what we're doing, or here's why we cannot do it.
Yeah. At least close the loop with them, and they'll understand, right?
Trust, building trust, and all this is very important. That's why our in Ritz Carlton in the US, our turnover was less than 20% against the industry of over 100%.
Well, the skeptical listener is going to say, "Look, Horst, you're the Ritz Carlton. You must have paid so much more." But you're saying that your compensation was on par with others.
On par with others, and look at what happened. Look at take San Francisco. We opened a hotel, and of course, heavy union.
Yep.
Heavy unionized.
Right. Yep.
And some hotels deserve it. We didn't have a union. They were picking us for 3 years and never became union because they realized they don't need it in our hotel.
Yeah. You only need a union when you're not doing something right.
We respect them without they are the representative. They don't need a representation.
Yeah.
Because we respect them.
Yeah.
And this is common sense, a respect of the individual, of the human being that works for your organization. Goodness.
When did we lose that? You've been in business long enough to know, was it the 80s? Was it the .com boom? When was it?
No, it was been, as Wall Street became stronger and stronger, and we had to concentrate. Look, we're not concentrate anymore as companies on the stuff that makes money. We concentrate on money rather than concentrate on what makes money. If we concentrate on what makes money, we have to understand our employees are part of making money for us.
So it's a longer term view.
It evolved.
Right. Which is not an American concept. I mean, we're a new country, and we think about this quarter, maybe this month.
That's right. It evolved. It evolved, and consequently, instead of leading, we manage.
Right.
We manage everything instead of leading our people and our organization toward a beautiful objective and a vision that we see in front of us.
So it strikes me that what you're kind of saying is you treat your employees as your first customer, right? You're doing focus groups with them. You're asking them what they think. You're making sure you deliver on a remarkable experience to them so that they can then do it to the end customer.
And give them feedback.
But here's where I'm stuck. What if your employee and the customer don't agree on something? They get into it on something. Who do you back? Whose side do you take? Do you take the customer's side, where you say the customer's always right? Or do you take your employee's side, where you say, look, that is my brand, that is my asset? Who do you back?
Well, first of all, 96% of customers that are dissatisfied only have kind of a frustration. They want to get rid of their frustration. That's why we taught our employees to be empowered and say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. That's 96%. There are 3% who have actually, over 3%, that actually have a legitimate reason to complain that has to be expected. Nobody can argue about. They don't, and then there is the less than 1%, which we call the jerk factor. They're jerks.
What was the word? Jerk. Oh, jerks. They're jerks. Yeah. And so, you don't want them as customers because they're just going to drive your employees to leave.
But that's the only thing I didn't empower. I empowered everything else. That decision I had to make as the president of the company if that customer is a jerk. Because otherwise, when there's a problem, I want to squeeze it all into that there was a jerk. No. If they feel that customer is totally wrong, then I want to be contacted and say there is a situation. And guess what? That happens maybe once a year.
Yeah, doesn't happen often. Again, the skeptical listener will say, of course, that's Ritz Carlton. Jerks don't stay at the Ritz Carlton. But no, there's plenty of celebrities, plenty of obnoxious athletes.
I have news for you.
So much of this comes back to recruiting. And before we wrap up, let's just spend a couple minutes on it. How do you identify these characteristics? Because it sounds like what you're saying is most of your folks at both Capella and Ritz Carlton had this DNA where they were very service-minded, they were very people-first. It's easy to figure that out after they join, but in an interview do you figure that out?
Well, let me make clear where I'm coming from. When I left Hyatt, which was a great company and is a great company, to start this new company which became Ritz Carlton. Yeah. I left Hyatt, fantastic company, only because I wanted to create my own company. My dream was to create the finest hotel company in the world. Yeah. I know I couldn't do that by just doing what everybody else does. And I knew if I have better employees, clearly I will be the winner.
That would be your differentiator.
That would be my differentiator.
Even more than fancy rooms, fancy lobbies.
Employees.
Right.
That was the whole thinking. So I looked around, how can I hire better? And I found a company in Lincoln, Nebraska called Talent Plus, who helped me to identify the talent profile for each job category and how to identify that in people that we interview.
Can you give an example? Let's say like housekeeping or bartender or concierge. What do you look for?
What I found a very funny example. Of course, for each job category, there are many examples. But the one funny example was doorman. We learned that the best doormen that you can identify all liked outside work. In fact, they liked gardening.
Wow. How did they figure that out?
I didn't. We finally knew they liked outside work. Then you had to like outside, otherwise because they had to be outside. And once we had great doormen, we interviewed them, and the best ones all like gardening.
Oh my God!
Hobby. So and it's very logical. They have to stay outside. They enjoy being outside. But if I would hire without a profile, I would have hired a human being like that and put him into a computer room.
Yeah, right.
But they go crazy, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. So there was profile. And
so you started with a scorecard of what are we looking for?
What are we looking for? What we're looking for, and we want patience with it, and some kind of when you face somebody, patience with the customer, some kind of ability to have some elegance with them, and so on. And that's
let's use patience, Horst. How do you know if a candidate for doorman has patience? How do you interview for that?
Well, frankly, patient. Well, I obviously didn't. That's why we hired used an outside company to identify those trademarks and how to identify that into the person.
Got it. Fascinating.
So we were willing, in other words, in order to lower this turnover, in order to have this better employee, we were willing to spend some money.
Yeah.
No question about it. But I knew also that would pay dramatically back. And that was very clear. I can put a pencil on that. Unfortunately, not in 2 days.
Yeah, there is a long medium-term payback, right?
And that's why we have so much breakdown, because we have to report in 3 months to Wall Street. Yeah. And let's not spend that money now, because otherwise we will be 1 cent behind our production. That's the crazy thing. Do we really manage what our customer wants? Are we really managing? Are we leading, or we're not concentrating on what makes money. We concentrate on money instead of concentrating on what makes money and consequently make more in the end.
So our listeners who lead private companies actually have an unfair advantage over public companies in a way, because they can make the more strategic midterm investments in people that will pay enormously on lifetime value, but just take a while.
It takes a while. That's right.
But it only works if you keep your people. If it's a revolving door, it's never going to work.
No, look, can you imagine we keep on accepting those revolving doors? I mean, and here we teach people and the knowledge walks right out of the door again.
Yeah. It's a massive lost investment.
I submit you cannot afford that. And people said we cannot afford this election. We cannot afford all this teaching. We cannot. Wait a minute. You cannot afford them walking out of the door. That's what you cannot afford.
You are legendary for defining and becoming the epitome of the luxury category. Then when you left Ritz and you started Capella Hotels, you defined ultra luxury. Do you think that can be done in virtually any industry where our listeners can position themselves at the top of the industry? Or do you think there are some industries that it just doesn't, it's not relevant?
Okay. Here's the very silly thing. All you have to be a little bit nicer. Be a little friendlier. That's all you have to be. And you're better. You're better. I'm working with a number of companies right now. Totally unrelated. I don't take any consulting with hotel or restaurant group, but with any other companies. And I work with all kind of companies. It's all the same. Just be nicer than your competition, and you're gonna win. Now, of course, your function has to be right and so on. I mean, I'm not dismissing that.
Sure.
But to be nicer, it's easily said, but not that easy done. Be nicer, that means you have to have all kind of processes to understand how to get the right employee for that, all kind of process to keep them, all kind of process, understand what the customer really wants and concentrate on what the customer needs and do it nicely, etc., etc. Of course, but that's true in any market segment.
Yeah, sure.
That's true in any industry. And, there are some people say B2B. I mean, come on, there's no such thing.
You're still selling to a person.
Being, and one company talks to a human being in the other company, period.
Absolutely. We've completely lost sight of that. We've tried to automate the selling process and the customer service process, and you lose these opportunities for connection with the customer.
That's it. And when we automate, we don't make it customer friendly. If you automate, it has to be, is it really customer friendly? Or just call Comcast and see the service you're going to get. Yeah. After you hang up after an hour waiting and some rude person answering you, just do it. Yeah. And they're totally automated.
But again, the skeptic will say, but that's Comcast. They're not premium. They can't afford to do that. And what you're saying is it's not about money. It's about picking the right people who are service minded.
I mean, how about the person that you lose the call of calling you back? That doesn't take any money. Yeah. That takes just common sense and being nice. And you would be so shocked and you would respect them from this moment on.
What % of people out there, employees, do you think are nice and service minded? It's not everybody.
Well, but there is nobody who made a decision to go to work today and be rude.
That's true. So it's how they're treated at work.
So why are you look? Here's the exciting thing. When I opened the hotels, as you know, I opened every hotel, did a training. One of the things that I did, I sat down with each department and asked where they want to be 6 months from now. I did that around the world, and they all answered the same thing. Meaning the dishwashers, the marketing people, doesn't matter. They all said we want to be the best, and they mean it. They mean it the first day they come to work. So why a few months later there is an employee who is not good at all? Yeah. I submit it was us leadership who didn't keep it in them.
Was not the employee. Stop blaming the employees.
Let's not make it easy for ourselves as leaders and dismiss it by saying it's the employee is not good and so on. How about us? Yeah. What's our role? Yeah. Our role is to keep that in them. To want to be the best and want to be excellent, keep that in them. That's a leadership role. That's not managing.
To help, as you did, the employees define what does best look like and put processes in place to make sure it happens consistently.
Exactly.
Horst Schultze, you make it sound so easy. You make it sound so easy. I encourage our listeners to get the new book. Excellence Wins, a no-nonsense guide to becoming the best in a world of compromise. And that is the key, right? The world has become a world of compromise. You can differentiate no matter what your industry, like never before. It has never been easier to set yourself apart by getting the right people, right?
Absolutely. Oh, it's so exciting.
Horst, thank you so much for making the time today. We so much appreciate it.
I was happy to be with you. Thank you very much.